Hey, friendo, Steve here.
Hey, Larson.
Welcome back to Going in Raw News Brief. So, Larson, earlier today on our AEW Collision WWE recap, WWE SmackDown recap, we sang the praises of AEW as it pertains to the Kenny Omega MJF match, MJF's role as babyface champion, and how that's been going so good.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been, AEW hasn't been exactly firing on all cylinders in a lot of other areas on their show lately. So we're going to talk about that
Especially
today.
creatively speaking, yes. And, I think we've been we've been critical, but not unfairly critical. I think our criticisms are generally fair when it comes to AEW's creative. I think.
Listen.
Not harsh for the sake of being harsh.
No.
Give credit where it's earned.
As always, if you're new here, if you've been here for a while, here's the deal. We are as honest as we could possibly be. We are critical because that's what we do. We are honest because that's who we are. Back in 2018, 2019, through a lot of pandemic, I thought AEW killed it. I thought they did really, really well. I think WWE dropped the ball in a bunch of different ways. And we pointed out, we were very critical of WWE, especially in the couple of years preceding pandemic. There was a lot of crap.
There was anyways. So getting back to AEW's creative. Over the last year, hit or miss.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair judgment.
Not great.
Maybe a few more misses than hits. And on the most recent Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer offers a potential explanation why the company's creative might be such a mess currently. And these transcripts come to you from Wrestle Talk. Quote, that's what Dave had to say. If you follow AEW, you know that a lot of stuff is being decided at much later periods than previous. Guys are getting their information on what they're doing later. Decisions are being made later. There's times, the day of the show, sometimes you don't even know what the plans are. It's almost at times like we used to talk about WWE, which is also very frustrating for talent. A lot of guys have a lot of input on what they're doing, but they don't really know a long-term direction. So they're doing stuff, they're coming up with ideas, but when you don't really know exactly a long-term direction, you're kind of coming up with ideas week by week too, but you don't know where the ultimate thing is. Maybe the ultimate thing hasn't even been decided. So that's one of the reasons that the shows are like the shows are.
Yeah. There's more to this, but we'll pause.
That sounds very
there.
WWE, actually.
It does, and very much so. When WWE, there was that whole phase that felt was probably years when WWE, you would hear about it all the time. Vince was changing the show up until the very last minute.
Sometimes during the show.
Right. And generally speaking, the shows were dog shit. Now, with WWE, there were always moments that were good. They would stage, moments, and they'd write moments. WrestleMania 2019, I thought, was a really, really good show. They set some really cool things up there. But overall, especially when it came to like long-term booking, long-term storytelling, a lot of it was so surface level. There was nothing in terms of like twists and turns or anything exciting or interesting happen or unpredictable happening, unless it was like a weird Vince McMahon whim, in which case it might be unpredictable, but also illogical.
Unsatisfying.
Right. And so one of the, things that you could point to is like, man, they're just changing things at the last second here. Well, now it seems like that is the situation in AEW. And here's how we know that Dave Meltzer is getting information from the inside of AEW about this. Jerry Lynn confirmed it. In a response to Dave Meltzer's report on Twitter, Jerry Lynn tweeted this out: because wrestlers and God knows who else have and continue to leak info to the sheets, the podcasts, etc. So Tony tries to keep things confidential. You wouldn't want to know everything before you see a movie. Anyone who leaks info is doing damage to the product and the industry. Now let's pause there because there's more. But number one, for anybody saying Dave Meltzer he just makes stuff up, you know what he's talking about. This is evidence, proof positive that Meltzer, people talk to Sean Ross Sapp, we know that, to tell him what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know why we're being left out of those leaks. By the way, we'll take some of those leaks. Ryan Nemeth, you want to leak to us? We're here. We're here for you, pal.
Hey, we used to live in Hollywood too. Steve literally lived in Hollywood.
I actually lived in
have
Hollywood
that in
proper.
common. So for those who may not know, Jerry Lynn, he's been on AEW TV. He's a producer backstage. He works, he works backstage for the company. Just so, in case there's any ambiguity or people weren't clear about how Jerry Lynn plays a role in all this, he's an employee of AEW.
Yeah.
Commenting publicly about a report from Meltzer about information getting out. From a creative standpoint, if this is, if Tony Khan is not telling wrestlers until day of what they're doing, from a creative standpoint, that sucks for the wrestlers. They can't plan ahead, can't employ foreshadowing, especially if it's in a situation where they're in a storyline where their contributions may be fairly minimal.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine MJF knows where his storylines are going. I imagine Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, Mox, they are probably in the know about this stuff. But a lot of other wrestlers are probably like, well, we're in the dark here because we don't have, we're not either in a position to contribute much, or our ideas aren't being implemented.
Yeah.
And so if they get, their direction as far as what to do, all right, I'll do this week. I don't know where this is going to lead, so I can't do anything tonight that's going to foreshadow or maybe logically lead to what's going to happen next week, which is it seems to me a pretty important aspect of pro wrestling storytelling is dropping stuff on what you're doing now to inevitably lead what happens next week or the week after.
Well, there's that, but there is also, I don't know, like, so we'll talk about this example here, but I get that look, I take Jerry Lynn at his word, but you can't tell me there's also not an element of, it's not just they're keeping it from the wrestlers so they don't leak stuff. It's because things are changing on the fly at the last minute, or they're they're being invented or written at the last minute as well. Tony Khan has already said publicly that he works 80 hours a week. Like on a good week, he works 80 hours a week.
That's a light week for him.
And that's a light week. And I'm sorry, but somebody working 80 hours a week with 2 other full-time jobs, they're not devoting their full time towards the creation of the product. So one possible example of messy creative would have to do with the AEW tag title picture. And this is what Dave Meltzer had to say about that. And these transcripts come to you via WrestlingNews.co. He said this. So on the Collision show, they had Dax and Ricky Starks do a match. That was just this one. And I figured normally the challenger wins. I don't think that tag title match is coming up. The last I heard is they may do Big Bill and Ricky Starks against the Young Bucks at Full Gear, but that's not official. It was just one of the many different things that was kind of thrown out there. So I've got to see how this all turns out. But even so, under any circumstances, the Bucks just won the number 1 contenders match, and it's never been talked about since. Yes, it's never been brought up. They did like on any show. They've never had them do any interviews, and Big Bill and Ricky Starks have never talked about the Young Bucks. I don't believe I haven't seen every single interview that's been done, but I've seen most. But there's been no talk at all about them going for the title since they won that thing. So it's not a sure thing. I mean, that's what's going to happen, but it was a thing that could happen, so that's kind of where things stand.
It did seem, I mean, if the rumors reports be believed, that Dax was really pushing creatively to have the Shock title change and have Starks and Bill win the titles from them in Collision a few weeks back. It really, if you're doing that to pop a number on Collision, debating the validity of that is a whole other conversation. But in terms of setting up what I think a lot of us expected coming out of the Young Bucks win, become the number 1 contenders, we're going to get FTR and Young Bucks 4.
Yeah.
And that's a huge match that you could put on Full Gear and potentially sell out the Forum. You got that. You got Jay White and MJF, and I'm sure 25 other matches they're going to add to the card. And it's great that Starks and Bill got an opportunity to be tag champs, but it seemed to be a decision made spur of the moment with maybe not a whole lot of thought put into how it's going to affect things down the line, because as we've seen on Collision, we have Starks and Bill with the tag titles. You have FTR coming after him, even though Starks and Bill says no rematch for you. You have House of Black coming after FTR for some reason. And now you got LFI on the show on Collision going after House of Black again for some reason. All kind of in the orbit of the tag team championships. Yet you have the Young Bucks over here, predominantly on Dynamite, I think have had one match since they won that number one contenders match. They defended the Ring of Honor six-man tag titles with Hangman Page against Hardy Party.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think the Young Bucks have really been on TV much. And I think Dave's right. I don't recall any mention of them talking at all about who they're going to face at Full Gear for the tag titles.
Yeah, I know. And it's the funny thing is I understand that pro wrestling is a unique, we've talked about this before. Pro wrestling is a unique medium, and it's a unique process to produce this weekly television, to write weekly television. I get that. But the idea that you've got FTR with these tag titles, and then all of a sudden somebody comes up, hey, here's an idea. Let's go ahead and do a shock title change. Number one, shock title change is never really they're never really a good idea unless it's like, I don't know, for something that really makes a hell of a lot of sense, you know?
Yeah.
And so
like Mankind beating The Rock for the title on Raw in somewhat shocking fashion because no one expected Mankind to be WWE champion.
Right.
But
exactly.
The story led to that moment.
The story led to that moment. And it led to all, you remember how overbooked that finish was?
Yeah.
And the storyline led to all those elements coming together in that moment for a shock title change that made sense for the story. Mm-hmm. But just to come up with an idea, hey, we should do this because it'd be fun or it'd be cool. It was simply confusing. And it gets even muddier when, the Young Bucks won this because the Young Bucks win, I think, preceded that title change.
Yeah, it did. It did.
And it's like, okay, well, we were going to have the Young Bucks. Why didn't we have a Young Bucks FTR face-off? And then we know that match, this is for the tag titles. This is a big deal. It's match number 4 between these guys. Right now, FTR, they've got the rubber match, that third match they won at Wembley. So, and now we don't even know. And it's like, how do you not, these are like your EVPs. How do you not have this stuff mapped out? If you're going to be doing these monthly pay-per-views, you need to be mapping out where these stories are heading each pay-per-view. Otherwise, it's just nobody's going to care because these stories they're not going to matter. Like you're going to always have that same number of people who are watching because they do have some of the best weekly wrestling on television in America.
Absolutely.
They have that. They can hang their hat on that, and there will always be people for that. And if you like just that, good for you. You're getting that. Mm-hmm. But there is another contingent of people, and we've seen this. WWE's business went up when their stories got better. Bottom line. And you're going to lose out on that in AEW, and you can have the best of both worlds. You can have your cake and eat it too.
Absolutely.
In fact, WWE's trying to enhance the quality of their in-ring product. You see a noticeable difference. The longer Gunther matches, the Shinsuke Ricochet match. Mm-hmm. They are you can tell Triple H, and I still think that they're at a disadvantage because I think the WWE style is still going to be a barrier to being sort of competing with AEW on that level, pile drivers, crazy moves like that. WWE's still not going to let that stuff fly, I think, to a degree.
No. They won't let a match like Kenny and MJF be on cable television.
Right, exactly. But they're trying to improve their in-ring product, and Larson, I can't think of a better person to help with their in-ring product than Will Ospreay. Look at that segue!
Great segue, but hey, if this here is to be believed, don't get your hopes up for seeing him a whole lot on main roster television. So, of course, Will Ospreay, set to be a free agent early 2024, February, I think, and amid speculation that WWE is interested. Why wouldn't they? I'm bringing in the current IWGP US champ. Meltzer has some backstage details on apparent pitches for Ospreay if he signs the promotion. These transcripts come to you from Wrestle Talk. Quote, one idea that was thrown at me was the idea of NXT Europe built around Will Ospreay. How much money they're going to spend on that and the revival of NXT Europe starts that thing of obviously what happened with the original NXT UK and its effect on the independent scene in England really hurt it badly. But at the same time, they didn't run regular shows or anything like that. They just did TV tapings. They've got the go-ahead from Endeavor to do it, but you just don't know exactly what that entails. Steve, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If you're going to pay Will Ospreay the money you need to pay him to bring him to WWE, are you going to put him on Raw, SmackDown, or on a show on Peacock that maybe 50,000 people will watch? NXT Europe.
I'm trying to think of a funny way to put this, but no, you don't do that. You don't do it. You don't need to do NXT Europe in the first place. you already have NXT. You don't need that. No. You put him on SmackDown. You put him on the Fun Show, on the Good Show, on the Blue Show. You put him on the Blue brand, or on Raw where Ricochet is. If Ricochet, he's like, oh man, I just went through a brutal feud with Shinsuke Nakamura, and I just survived. I don't know, Bronson Reed. I'm just throwing a name out there. what's next for me? I'm exhausted from all this on my quest to, regain my relevancy here.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, it's Will Ospreay. That's what you do. You immediately put Ospreay and Ricochet in there. Ricochet could need a loss. You'd have no problem with that. Ospreay beats Ricochet, moves on to Seth Rollins because you don't want to immediately do Seth Rollins.
No.
You got to give.
You don't want Seth Rollins every year at WrestleMania to face some incoming superstar and take that L.
Right. Oh, hell.
You can't do that year after year.
Yeah. No. I saw this and I was like, I don't want to. I'm sorry. I don't want to see Will Ospreay against Cara Noir. I don't even know if he's still wrestling. I think he's out. I think he's out with an injury. No offense to Cara Noir. I don't want to see that. I don't even know who's hot in Europe right now. Is it Will Ospreay versus Millie McKenzie? Maybe. I love Millie McKenzie. She's great. I don't want to see that. I want to see him with AJ. I want to see him with Ricochet, Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens. There's like a million. Main roster's loaded right now. I don't even want him in NXT.
No,
he's a main roster level guy.
Again, you don't sign Will Ospreay right now at the peak of his popularity. You don't do that.
No.
And then immediately put him on a show that a vast majority of your fan, write him a huge check at that, and put him on a show that a vast majority of your fan base will not watch. It's not smart business. They're not going to do that.
Don't even pitch it to him.
No.
Don't even suggest it to him. Hey, we got a great idea.
If he's willing right now to move to the States, if the price is right, if the check is large enough, you might not get another opportunity at this.
If they're like, hey, we're going to build an entire brand around you. Great. SmackDown?
Yeah, I know.
Raw?
And they say, no, NXT?
NXT, maybe. No, NXT Europe. Peace out, bruv. No, this would be this shit right here.
Yeah, no, I'd be like, all right, Tony Khan, getting you on the phone.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because Tony Khan will push him to the moon. We've seen that already.
Yeah, he will. Yeah. So, man, I don't know. And look, regardless, Collision, Rampage, Dynamite, those are all going to do better numbers than NXT Europe.
Impact, NWA.
NWA
Keep listing other promotions at this point.
Hey, did you see NWA is incorporating cocaine into their programming? Did you see that?
Was that the James Mitchell bit?
Yeah.
Okay, I started watching it and I was like, all right. I didn't know it went into that direction.
I don't think there was anything more than just on the table. There was a bunch of white powder that people kept on sniffing. So the idea was that it was cocaine. And what was his name? Tim Storm looked pretty uncomfortable. So, anyways, we'll see how the CW at 2 a.m. appreciates.
It's 2 a.m. It's whatever. They probably don't care. They probably even know about it.
Well, yeah, it's like, hey, NWA is paying for this time, so I got to stop saying that. That's a joke. That is a joke. I do not know that NWA is paying for the CW time spot. I don't think that's probably the case. Anyways. So that's going to do it for our news brief today. Let us know what you guys think. Do you want to see Will Ospreay in NXT Europe with name a European star, Larson? Do you know anybody?
Is Alexander Wolf still wrestling?
Grado?
Yeah, Grado.
Yeah, there you go. Anyways, thanks for watching. We'll see you around.
Bye.